What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Elevate Your Grind, brought to you by the Cannabis Lab. I am your host, Todd Rosales, and it is lovely to be here today. We have such a great start to the year. The first series of events went off phenomenally. We are expanding our territories. You will see us in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Tampa, Orlando, and now up in good old Tallahassee, Florida. That's right, Capital City. We're coming for you. If you guys are interested in anything C-Lab, please check out joinclab.com. Or just Google Cannabis Lab Eventbrites. I have a great episode for you today. There are a lot of different alternative techniques out there in cannabis when it comes to capital raising and financing your company and everything else. This is definitely one of the most unique ones that I've come across. I'm sure it's a lot more widely available in other industries, but we're always interested to see what's going on here in cannabis. So I by no means have the ability to really even explain this so much at a high level before I bring him into the show. So please welcome today's guest, Darren Gleeman, the managing director of MBO Ventures. Darren, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, and I'm excited to give it a shot for your viewers. Explain how it works.
Absolutely. So obviously when they reached out to me to tell me about you and ask about the show, MBO Ventures, I assumed, another investment fund in cannabis. I'm like, I love these conversations. I've had them a million times. I'm easily able to do this. And then they're like, oh yeah, they're an ESOP shop. And I'm like, I don't know what that is. So if you don't mind, so I get the general overview. It's almost like a special vehicle to where you're selling your company to your employees. Now that sounds like some straight up Robin Hood stuff. So can you give us more of a definitive definition of it?
Yeah, it really is just another way for a business owner to sell their company. That's it. So back in the 60s and 70s, there was a whole thing going on of communism versus capitalism. Really, that was going on. And so we tried to come up with a way with the United States. Well, how do we make capitalism work?
It's still going on.
Yeah. How do you make it work? It is still going on, and it's always going to go on. Does it work? Does capitalism work for the regular, normal workers? You know what? I'm not saying communism works, that's for sure. I'm not, but capitalism is difficult when you're a regular worker. So in the 70s, they came up with this structure. They're like, all right, well, in order to get the regular workers to make money, how do we all make money? By ownership. We need to own companies. We need to own things. So this is a way, right, to how do we get workers to own a piece of a company? Well, a great way is to buy it from the actual place where they work. Well, great idea, but employees have no money, zero money. So the government came up with a way for a business owner to be incentivized to sell to their employees. And they came up with a lot of different incentives, a lot of different subsidies. And they keep on coming up with more and more. And the more they come up with, the more incentives you have to do it. The biggest problem with this ESOP structure is that nobody knows what it is. It's pure education. When people hear about this ESOP, they think, oh, it's some type of 401k, something with contributions or something. I don't want to hear it. It's just not for me. They have no idea that it's just a way to sell your company, except with these benefits. That's all it is, a way to sell your company. Let me get into it quickly of why people would be interested in this.
On that note, so you said a way to sell. So one of the things that I had the thought, I was watching the video that you had on your website about a way to sell the company. It's a way to avoid taxes. But you said that essentially the literal definition of an ESOP is a defined benefits plan. Now, those I'm familiar with. And I think if most people, if you don't know what a defined benefits plan is, it's essentially a pension plan, right? But you said that's not, it's different.
No.
It is that, but okay, let me explain.
No, it's kind of like if I was describing what your podcast is right now, I wouldn't be describing it as, well, you're using a hypertext link to go onto a JSON derivative, which you're eventually going to get through the worldwide network and then get to your audience. You're not going to explain it that way. You can explain your podcast. It's a way just to talk to people and explain how things are going. With an ESOP, you are using down the road, you are using the structure of a defined, it's actually a defined contribution plan. You're using that structure. But other than that, that's just something that you're using. It's a tool to get to where you want to be, which is to sell the company to the actual to the actual employees. That's pretty much it.
So,
No,
we sell the company to the employees, and then what happens next? They come to my house in the
yeah.
middle of the night, pit with pitchforks and throw me out. Like how? So tell me, what are the so right now that we're at an we're at a very unique point. I don't know if it's a unique point in time in history, but like outside of cannabis, you have the baby boomer generation that has a ton of small businesses that's looking to get out, right? So people are looking to transition out of businesses that may not have owners for. Cannabis, you have a very similar situation to where you have a lot of operators that have been operating, since legal inception in their state. They've done whatever they can to try to get profitable. They haven't been able to raise the amount of money that they need. They're probably up to their eyeballs in debt, and they're looking for ways to either bring in new capital or hang it up, but get something for the hard work that they've had. I would imagine the guys at the top who haven't been collecting an income, that were looking for the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, they're not as still enchanted as some of the employees might be that were ecstatic to get into cannabis and ecstatic to work for that. The opportunity for that employee of that company, if the guy at the top or the gal at the top wants to get out, for them to take someone ownership, I imagine that'd be a very popular choice for them. So when we look at the cannabis industry specifically, where are the opportunities for companies to do this?
Yeah. So in those companies that you're describing, there's not much of an opportunity. An
Got it.
ESOP is really structured. It's something where the owner, not the employees, the owner decides that they're going to do it. And it's really two things. It's really they do it for the business incentives that they're going to get, because of the tax incentives are so huge that they're forced to want to sell to the employees, and it costs the employees literally nothing to do it. This is the way it works. Do you know what private equity is? Private equity is
Yeah.
they're financial buyers, right? So how does a private equity firm buy companies? And let's just take an example of a $5 million company, make it $5 million a year, and the value is, let's say, 25 million bucks, right? That's a private equity deal. How does the private equity firm buy that for 25 million? Well, here's the secret. They're not giving you 25 million. What they're doing is this. If you're making $5 million a year for 25 million, plain vanilla, they're going to, from their funds money, they're going to give you $5 million. That's what you're getting from the fund. Then they're going to borrow off of your company's cash flow. They go to like JP Morgan and say, this company is making $5 million a year. Lend me $10 million to give them, lend me 10 million to give you the 10 million. So they lend $10 million off of your company. So $5 million comes from me. We borrow 10 million off of your company. It used to be called a leveraged buyout. Now you get 10 million. So you have 15 million total. The last 10 million is what's called an earnout. An earnout means that you promised that you were going to do all of these returns the next couple of years. Fantastic. Reach those levels and you get paid the last $10 million. If you don't reach those levels, you're not getting paid that last $10 million. That's a typical private equity deal. Mm-hmm. With an ESOP, right, when the employees, it costs the employees nothing. It's structured very similarly, except there is no equity in the deal. So you go out to the same lender and you borrow that same $10 million, but instead of having a third-party private equity firm lever it up, the company levers up themselves. So the company borrows that same $10 million, and that goes to the owner. And the other $15 million in this example that would go to the owner is what's called the seller note. That's an IOU from the company back to the owner. So that's how they get that $25 million sale. Again, 10 million from the bank and 15 million seller note. That 25 million goes to the owner. That's how the employees pay. It doesn't cost the employees anything. So normally that $25 million that they're going to be making, if it was a private equity deal, they have to pay capital gains tax on that. It's very difficult for the owners to not pay capital gains tax. It's extremely hard. And capital gains tax across the country is about 30%. So on a $25 million deal, you owe $7.5 million to the government in capital gains tax. In Florida, it's a little bit less, but across the board, about 7.5 million. Well, when you
Why we're
sell
getting
to
too
the
crowded.
ESOP, that's right. When you sell to the ESOP, that 7.5 million capital gains is deferred. You don't have to pay it. And if you structure it correctly, it's deferred forever. That's a big deal. In every other industry, everyone loves that. In the cannabis space, that's great, but that's not why we're talking. We're talking for another incentive that the government gave, which is this. This is the cool incentive. When you sell 100% of your company to the employees with this ESOP structure, and it's 100%, the company itself runs completely tax-free. Federal income tax-free, state income tax-free, and something called unrelated business income tax-free. And when you pay no income tax, deductions do not matter at all. No one cares about deductions because you're not paying any tax. So it doesn't matter. So with an ESOP, you're not evading 280E. You're not getting around 280E. You're just making 280E irrelevant because the company is still filling out the tax returns. And when you fill out the tax returns, you're still not taking any deductions. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because you pay zero tax.
How does the government allow any kind of company to pay zero tax? I mean, they don't allow anything to happen without them trying to take tax on it now. I mean, they hired how many federal agents to try to go after Venmo and Zelle transactions and cryptocurrency and everything else. They're quite famously known for taking their piece of the pie. So how do they have something within their own tax code that allows someone to not pay tax?
Yeah. And it's not only in the tax code. This was specifically created in 1998, where Congress wanted to come up with a way to incentivize you to sell to your employees. So they come up with this idea. What if we make an employee-owned company that's totally tax-free? What if we did that? Well, that incentivizes you. So they literally wrote a bill that says an employee-owned company in the ESOP structure pays no tax when it sits inside of a certain structure. Bill Clinton signed that into law in 1998. And from 1998 onward, a completely tax-free company has been in existence. We can do it. We've structured in the past 25 years over 400 of these. So,
Wow.
yes, this is put in place by Congress, signed in by the president. This structure, right? This structure is so beloved because everyone really wants to help workers. Bernie Sanders, you would say he's probably the furthest left senator in the country. He loves the whole ESOP structure because of, bottom line is, these incentives are one purpose: to give ownership to the employees. So that's why he loves it, for the huge incentives, so that it's life-changing for the employees. On the other side of the spectrum, who's the furthest right senator? Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell loves ESOPs because of all the business incentives that it gives you. Look, paying zero federal tax and zero state income tax is pretty amazing. He loves that. No capital gains tax for you? Great. He loves it. I mean, there's a lot of other benefits. I mean, it really is something that the left and the right both love. And so, yes, great question. And it's crazy, but it really is there.
So let's put a pin in that. I want to come back to it. What, obviously it seems you have a deep financial background. What brought you into this world of ESOPs? What helped you find this structure? Was it a need? Was it something that you saw happen? Like, how did you start building a business around this?
Well, like I said, we've been doing this now for about 25 years. Me personally, specifically with cannabis, I was talking to someone, and this is about 2 years, little less than 2 years ago. And they said to me, can you do an ESOP in the cannabis space? And I said, you can, but why would any owner want to? Because with an ESOP, you can only pay what's called fair market value. You can't pay a crazy premium. And I said, in this space, you have companies that are buying and being sold for 3-4 times revenue, like ridiculous,
Yeah.
stupid numbers. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. You wouldn't be able to do it. And then they said, yeah. And there's also this thing called 280E. And then I started to get into 280E. And right at that moment, it was like, oh my God, this is unbelievably crazy how this really works for the cannabis industry because of the 280E. And that's how we got into the cannabis space. And this is about 2 years ago. And I've been pitching now for 2 years. Every accounting firm I can speak to, every law firm I can speak to, until they finally say, oh my God, you really did it. Of course I did it because I know how it works. We had to explain how these things worked. And then in December, we closed three deals, ESOPs.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dude, I mean, that is incredible because the whole industry is doing nothing but trying to figure out how to combat 280E, how to get rid of 280E, spending tons of money lobbying against it. And there is a solution out there. So I'm the owner of a cannabis business. We start talking. You said paying fair market value. How do you establish when I'm going with private equity or venture capital, they kind of establish the valuation that they're willing to pay. And that's how it's set, right? Based off of either revenue or God forbid profit, which doesn't exist too much in this industry, but that's kind of how the valuation is set. When I'm the owner, how do I assess fair market value depending on the type of company that I am? And what stage of my business would I most likely be in? And why would I do this outside of the fact that I want to take cash out of my business? If I'm in this for the long haul and I see, the light at the end of the rainbow that everything's going to fall into place eventually. And maybe I can sell, if I'm Burner or Caleb Counts or somebody that has one of these large national brands, what is the advantage of me doing an
Yeah.
ESOP versus staying the course?
Yeah. So let's unpack that. The valuations, how is that created? So what happens here is you decide, all right, let's say Cannabis Lab. You guys are ready. You've grown to a decent size. Now, what's a decent size? It's not for a startup. Only because you have to pay fair market value for the company, right? If you have a startup that has zero income, what's that worth? It's not worth much. So for the owner themselves to sell their company that's very little doesn't make sense. For the company and the employees, it makes sense always, but not for the shareholders. The owners doesn't make sense. For the owners, it makes sense when they're at about $2 million in not revenue, $2 million in net income. 2 million plus, and they're growing. That's when it makes sense. For all these other firms that are trying to get there and they're making $100,000 a year or $300,000 a year, no, the ESOP structure doesn't make sense. It'll be too expensive for them. It does start at a higher level, like I said, at about $2 million, $2.5 million in EBITDA. EBITDA is the investment banking word for net income before taxes. So that's really where it makes sense. So it's a higher level. And yes, there are tons of companies at these levels, and they usually have more employees also for it. How do we establish, the question next one was, how do you establish the price for your company? The way it works is this. The employees, via these attorneys that are hired, get what's called a trustee. A trustee represents the employees. The trustee has one job in mind: to make sure that these employees pay fair market value. They cannot pay a premium. So in the olden days, when the companies were selling at 4 times revenue, that's not fair market value. Fair market value is based on what a normal financial buyer would pay for a company, so they can pay down their loans, what a private equity firm would buy. So the fair market value would be negotiated with that trustee. So we would come in and we would work with the shareholder, and we would work with them and the trustee and try to come up with what true fair market value is. And that would be done through a true arm's length negotiation, just like if it was a private equity firm coming in to buy the company. When a private equity firm comes in to buy the company, I say to you, look, I want to pay for you, 2 times EBITDA. And then the investment banking firm that you're hiring is trying to pick them up in the price, just like a negotiation in your buying and selling a house. It's the same exact type of structure that you're doing. So you're really negotiating with this trustee, and you come up with what fair market value is. And fair market value could be anywhere from, 4x, 4 times net income without taxes, to 6, maybe 7.
Wow.
It all depends
And
on your
then
timing.
So I go ahead, I decide I'm going to sell my company to my employees. You told me how I get paid. What happens, with the company, the employees? How is that structured? And then what does the company look like post ESOP, if you will?
Okay. So the next thing is, you said, why would I, as an owner, sell today? when I'm looking at my next exit, which is like federal legalization comes down the road, I'm hoping to get bought out by Budweiser down the road. I don't want to sell now. Okay, well, by selling now to the ESOP, you're taking some chips off the table. You're allowing your company to double or triple your cash flow right away because you're not paying taxes, which is pretty important, that you get to increase your cash flow significantly. The owner, when they sell it, they still get a chunk of stock that they can buy back into the future, something called warrants. A warrant allows you to buy back some of your stock at a specific predetermined price. So these former shareholders will get warrants to buy back a piece of the company in the future. So that way, the owners that are selling today will still be able to ride along with their employees into the future.
Now,
So
would
they're
that be proportionate to the share that the employees got, or would it be proportionate to what they owned prior?
No, it's well, owning prior, they owned 100% prior. Now they're
Okay.
selling 100%, but they'll get warrants to buy back, a decent amount of stock into the future.
Okay.
That's how it would work. So this way, they actually now will continue to manage the company. They're still on the board of directors they want to be. So they're running the company, right? They're still managing it. Who controls these companies? It's the board of directors. The board of directors governs the company just like it does today. So, for instance, if I have a corporation today, I think I'm the shareholder. I'm running it. I'm not. It's the board of directors, even though I might be the board of directors. It's really
Yeah.
the board of directors that governs the company, and that's the same thing with an ESOP. The board of directors will govern that company.
Do they typically keep the same board, or do they restructure the board with a representative group of employees?
Now, typically they keep the same board. It might be this that the trustee might say to them, "Okay, look, as a board, you've done pretty well, right? Because it's not like a private equity coming in that wants to like shuffle things around. When people do the ESOP, they've already shown they're making money, they're doing well. The ESOP trustee, they're not in the business of running the company, they're not in the business of putting board members on. They want to make sure that the company is governed correctly moving forward. So normally they're going to say, you guys are on the board doing a great job. We'd love you to stay on the board. In 2 years, what we'd like is maybe get an independent director that you choose that'll now be on the board. But there's no reason, again, it's not like a private equity firm where I'm going to come in and totally rejigger up your company. The owners will be continuing to be on that board, and if they want to continue managing, they'll manage it. And that's what everyone really wants.
Interesting. So
It's just
now
better for the
that's
employees.
the owner's gotten paid, the structure is in place. How are the employees benefit? Is it certain employees? Do they have to hit a certain level? Is there a certain tenure associated with it? Like, I just got hired 2 weeks ago and they do this. Am I eligible to be part owner of the company?
Yeah, so let's just say there's 100, let's say there's 100 employees in the company.
I was
Some
gonna
are
throw out a
by
number, but I didn't know where to go.
yeah, I mean, let's say there's 100 employees and you're making, let's say, 50 grand and I make 100 grand. Well, the way we divvy up the pot for the employees is it's called non-discriminatory and it's based only on salary. So if you make 50 grand a year and I make 100 grand a year, I'm going to get twice as much stock as you. If I make 150 and you make 50, you get 3 times as much stock. And it's capped out. I think like 350 is the max where you do it. The way you get stock, the way I get stock, the way vesting usually is done over let's say a 5-year period. So if I've been in the company for a year, I get 20%. 2 years, 40, 60, 80, 100. So if you just started today and I started last year, and let's say the ESOP is already a year old, when you start, it's a year old, so I get 20%. You just started yesterday, you're only getting 1 day's worth. So you're not getting any vesting.
Interesting.
You have to be there for 1 full year to vest your 20%. And then the stock is allocated over a longer period of time to the employees. The stock can be, the stock is allocated over, let's say 20, 25 years. That means that as more and more people start working, they also get a piece of the puzzle, a piece of the pie. And the people that are staying there longest keep getting more and more.
So, silly question on the salary note. I come from the world of IT resellers. I worked for a very large 150 employees and $120 million a year. We had our salespeople, their salaries were 50, 60, 70 grand a year. but their income was north of $600,000 a year. They were also the lifeblood of the company because we were a reseller,
Right.
in an ESOP situation. I mean, is that kind of by the book how it goes, or does the owner kind of say like, hey, let's keep their commissions in this for salary to give them a bigger
Oh,
piece of the pie? How do you
oh,
deal with that?
yeah. So their salaries and their bonuses are still there, right? But
Okay.
remember, it's capped at 350. So if a sales guy is making 350,000 and another sales guy is making 700,000, they both
Yeah.
get $350,000 worth in terms of, if I was going to value how much stock it is. That's the cap. Now
Th-
for
does-
key employees, go ahead.
no, go on.
Okay. I was gonna say for key employees, there's other things to do to give them a little bit extra. There's something called SARs, which is a shareholder appreciation right. And so they can
Okay.
at that point, we say the company's valued, do the ESOP, let's say you can make it easy numbers, company's valued at $10 million. What we say to these for the shareholder appreciation rights is we're going to give 10%, anything above $10 million. If we sell it in, let's say 10 years, we do a valuation 7 years from now. Anything above $10 million, you guys can get 10% of it. So now, if that $10 million company is valued at $100 million, they look at the difference, 100 minus 10, that's 90 million. And then they get 10% of that. So they would get 10 million, they would get $9 million. That's how you would give more to your key employees without digging into the actual ESOP. The ESOP still gets what they get. And they would still get their ESOP shares.
This is very fascinating. As far as like the employees in an ESOP that have ownership, what are some of the other advantages? Are there
Oh,
voting rights? Is there any say in the control of the company? Like, what are and it's are there any large famous examples of this that you can share? Because I don't know any off the top of my head, and I'd love to understand if there's a major company that it's right in front of my face.
Public supermarket is right in front of your
Huh?
face.
It
Yeah.
is.
And
Actually, I was
yeah,
there
those guys,
today.
yeah, go in tomorrow and look around and see some of the older people that have been there for a while. They're millionaires. They are millionaires. I'm not kidding. The guys at the checkout counter, the man who's actually, doing your cash register,
Yeah.
millionaire. They've done
Wow.
super well. Yeah. So Publix is a great example in Florida of an ESOP structure.
So do you know when they did their ESOP?
Mm, I don't know. I could just throw
Like,
out a number, 20 years ago, but I'm not really sure
I'm just
when.
thinking of all my friends
Yeah.
that have worked there over the years. Obviously, growing up in Florida, I had a good amount of them.
Yeah, but if they
So,
left, then they wouldn't have invested, right? I mean, the idea here
yeah.
is if you have friends that worked there for a couple of years, yeah, they worked there, it was great, probably got very little. But again, it's the longer you stay, the more you get. Now with an ESOP, right? It's really now this is where when you call from the very, very beginning, you said, oh, it's a contribution plan or whatever it is.
Yeah.
This is where it comes in. It uses the pension plan piece now. So the individuals, it's not a profit sharing plan. They get the money when they retire. That's when everybody actually gets the money, unless, like in the cannabis world, where you're very likely to sell the company, let's say 10 years down the road upon federal legalization. That's what everyone is looking at. Then everyone vests automatically and everyone gets their money as soon as it happens. Meaning this, we bought a company, sold an ESOP for 10 million bucks today, and then 10 years down the road, federal legalization occurs. Budweiser comes in and offers $100 million to the company. Great. We sell it. Every employee vests automatically. The $100 million comes in, and then the $100 million is split up into every employee's account. Every employee, based on the shares that they have, will get their money. They do not pay tax on that until they actually take the money out of their IRA or whatever pension plan that they have at the time. So that's how they get their money. If the company is not sold, when they retire, that's when they get their money.
That is super intriguing. So let
Yeah.
me ask the question of the details of this. So say I started a company, we're doing very well. I come across this structure. It's intriguing to me. Do I have to sell? I'm 100% majority shareholder. I
Mm-hmm.
own 100% of my company. Can I sell half the company to my employees and hold on to half, or is it an all or nothing type scenario?
Yeah, you could sell 1%, you could sell 2%. The minimum, the minimum is about 30% in order. Remember, I said to you, defer your capital gains tax.
Yeah.
So capital gains tax is something that you sell. If you have a business, you have a house, you pay capital gains, another type of tax you pay. So the government says if you sell at least 30%, then you can defer your capital gains. So if the company is worth $100 million and you sold 29% to the ESOP for 29 million, you have to then pay 10 million in capital gains tax. If you sell 30% for 30 million, you can defer those capital gains. So there's very few people, very few companies that will ever go below 30%. But yes, you can sell 30%.
How long is the deferment for?
It's for so here's the catch with the deferment. Do you know what a 1031 is in real estate by any chance? It doesn't matter.
Not very familiar, no.
Yeah, don't worry. The way it works is this. The government says this. All right, you just sold your company for $100 million. We'll allow you to defer your capital gains tax forever as long as you do this, as long as you reinvest that $100 million into another US-based operating company. What does that mean? That means that you can take the $100 million that you just sold it for, and you can buy stocks, you can buy Google, you can buy Apple, you can buy the S&P 500, you can buy bonds, you can buy like a General Electric floating rate note. You can, as long as you're buying, that's what's called a US-based operating company. Fantastic. So when you buy bonds, for instance, you don't, let's say it's a $100 million sale, you don't have to put $100 million down to buy the bonds. You can actually put 10% to buy the bonds. So you put $10 million down and buy a $100 million bond. More in reality, if it's a $10 million company, you sell for 10 million bucks, you put $1 million down and buy the $10 million worth of these bonds. And these bonds are actually called floating rate notes, which means you can buy a bond that it's like a 40-year term. So as long as you hold on to that 40-year bond, you don't pay your capital gains tax.
Interesting, man. That is
yeah.
crazy. So with this being so great, because you get your money, you defer your taxes, your company doesn't have to do taxes.
Yeah.
Why are more people not doing this? Why isn't everyone doing it?
I'll tell you exactly why. And
It even
if you go
sounds like
back,
a great way to recruit employees too.
yeah, if you go back to the very, very, very beginning of our conversation, the very, very beginning conversation, you said to me, isn't this some type of qualified defined benefit plan? You said it, right? Because somewhere you Googled, you looked, and I'm like, no, that's really the intricacy of how it works. That's the biggest problem because no one really knows what this thing is. And if you start Googling it, you see, oh, you know what this, if you Google it, oh, an ESOP is an IRC section 401A defined contribution plan that's also a stock bonus plan, money purchase plan based on IRC section 4975E8. And I'm not even kidding when I use those codes. I don't know what that means. I don't even know what I just said to you. I just memorized it. I mean, I have no idea what that means. And nobody does. So the biggest problem we have is that nobody knows what this is. So it's all education. That's why I need to get in front of people and they explain it. And when I explain to people, I explain to them based on what their case is.
Yeah.
That's it. It's just pure education. You're right. Why doesn't and I get this all the time. If this is so great, first of all, I don't believe it. It sounds too good to be true. And why has nobody ever told me about this? Yeah, if you speak to any investment banking firm, any investment management firm, they won't know what this is. They just won't. What is what they'll tell you? Oh yeah, I've heard of it. I heard it's good for some companies. You know, it's some type of 401k pension plan. That's not. I don't know. It's not for you, because the entire United States community for accounting firms, valuation firms, law firms, investment banking firms, banks is all geared towards private equity. They're not geared towards employee ownership via this ESOP structure. That's not what they're geared for. That's just not it. So hence, you don't know about it. No one knows about it. And that's why, unless we're actually getting in front of people and explaining to them, they're not doing it.
And even with cannabis being Schedule 1, you know, and the needing special licenses and everything else, you can still do it with cannabis companies.
Yeah, because this is why. Here's the technical in the weeds thing of why it can work with. Here's in the weeds. you structure this thing inside of what's called an S corporation, right? That's the type of company, an S corporation. Well, every S corporation in the United States of America, everyone fills out, when they file the taxes, they fill out what's called an 1120S. It's a tax form. Everyone fills it out. When you fill out that form, you follow the rule, no deductions. So you do. You take no deductions. You follow 280E, take to the T. The next step in an S corporation, after you fill out that form, is to send out K1s to all of the shareholders. Distribution of profits. That's what a K1 is. With an ESOP, there's one shareholder, which is the Employee Stock Ownership Trust. All of the employees are beneficiaries of the trust. They're not shareholders. And this was created by Congress on purpose. So the Employee Stock Ownership Trust, that's the special trust that pays no income taxes, pays no unrelated business income tax, no state income tax. So when this tax-exempt entity receives the K1, the accountant looks at it, very nice, it all works, they check it off and they file it away because they don't pay tax. That's how it works. You're not doing anything against any rules. You're following all the rules to the T.
I was watching a YouTube video that talked about the structure of Rolex, and like, even though this may not be how it's structured, it just seems very similar ways to avoid paying taxes through different structures and ownership models and everything else. And I mean, if they're out there, we should be taking advantage of it. They're taking advantage of us from a tax standpoint.
The tax code is fairly huge. And if you can pay hundreds of millions of dollars in fees like Apple does, right? And Meta does, and I guess Rolex. Yeah, there's different. You got to look at the rules. You got to just follow the law. There's a lot of stuff out there. With an ESOP, it's not so complicated. It's something that it's not mistakes. I mean, a lot of these companies are saying, oh, this is a mistake, and this says this, and this says that, and hence we can take this type of deduction. With an ESOP, it's literally put in place by Congress. So there is no, maybe this works. This 100% absolutely works.
Have you guys done any in cannabis yet?
We have done, we closed 3 cannabis deals in December. Those are the first 3 in the nation. Yeah, first 3 in the nation. And we have about 6 that are signed up and ready to go for 2024. And that's before now I'm starting to really pitch it.
Very cool, man. Well, how do we get more people to you? How do we get you in front of more people, educate them on ESOPs?
Well, I don't know. Hopefully people through this podcast, will contact me through my website, through LinkedIn. They can email me and I'll just go through and I'll explain to everybody. That's all I do. Absolutely. Is I educate and I just battle. Like, I've spoken to hundreds of attorneys. I've been in a room one time with 30 attorneys about this specific structure. And I was pounded on until the very end, it's like, wow, yeah, this literally works. This literally works. So if you give my email address out to people, it'd be great.
Yeah, no, give the website, give the email, all the plugs, anywhere anyone can contact you.
Yeah, so it's D Gleeman. If I don't know if you can see my name there, but it's D Gleeman at mboventures.com. Like MBO is management buyout, mboventures.com. Go to my website, www.mboventures.com. Go to me on LinkedIn, Darren Gleeman. Link in with me. You can link in message there with me too. And I'll call you and we'll set something up.
Well, Darren, I appreciate you coming on and educating us about this. I imagine in the near future, you're going to be one of the most popular people in the industry, my friend.
I hope so. I hope so. Been working hard
Darren,
at this.
Thank you for joining us.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And thank you to everybody at home for watching. Of course, if you missed any part of this interview, you can always check it out and find it at youtube.com/elevateyourgrind. For all things Cannabis Lab, check out joinclab.com. Meetings are third Thursdays of the month, folks. Maybe we'll see you next week.